How does a son move to another state and forget to tell his own father? Why did he sound so calm, like he had already replaced me in his life? And how did one quiet email, with one attachment, turn his little fresh start into a legal dead end? My name is Gareth Weller. I'm 61 years old, and if you passed me on the street, you wouldn't remember my face 5 minutes later. That's not self-pity. It's just fact. I'm the kind of man people overlook. Average height, graying hair cut short and practical, hands that show 30 years of honest work, but nothing remarkable. I spent most of my career in logistics management, making sure things moved from point A to point B without drama or delay. When I retired 3 years ago, I started a small property management business. Nothing flashy, just helping people with rental properties, maintenance schedules, documentation. The boring stuff that keeps buildings standing and tenants happy. People have called me boring my whole life. Methodical, quiet. The guy who shows up on time, does the work, doesn't make waves. My ex-wife used to say I had all the personality of a filing cabinet. Maybe she was right. But filing cabinets keep things organized, keep them safe, keep them from getting lost. There's value in that, even if nobody writes songs about it. I was standing in my kitchen when the phone rang. Tuesday afternoon, 3:15. I remember because I'd just finished updating a spreadsheet for one of my rental properties and was debating whether to make coffee or switch to something stronger. The kitchen was quiet except for the refrigerator's hum and the distant sound of a lawnmower from somebody's yard down the block. Sunlight came through the window over the sink, making patterns on the worn linoleum floor that I'd been meaning to replace for 2 years. The caller ID said, Noah, my son. I answered on the second ring. Hey, Noah. Hey, Dad. His voice sounded good, relaxed, easy, the voice of a man who'd just finished a satisfying meal or closed a successful deal. How are you doing? Fine. Just working on some paperwork. You? Good. Listen, I wanted to give you a call about something. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I waited. Noah had never been the type to get to the point quickly. He liked to ease into conversations, set the stage, make sure the emotional temperature was right before he delivered whatever news he had. It was one of his skills, that ability to manage a conversation, to make people comfortable right before he told them something they might not want to hear. Bree and I moved, he said. Last week, actually. We're in Colorado now. Got a great opportunity out here, better cost of living, closer to some friends. It's been a whirlwind, honestly. Just been so busy with the move and settling in. I stood very still. The sunlight patterns on the floor seemed suddenly too bright, like they were mocking me. The refrigerator hum got louder, or maybe it was just that everything else got quieter. Colorado, I said. My voice came out level, almost friendly. I'm good at that, keeping my voice steady when my hands start shaking. That's a big change. Yeah, it is. It's great, though. Really great. The house is bigger, the neighborhood's nice, and Bree's already made friends with some of the neighbors. You'd love it out here, Dad. The mountains are incredible. When did you say you moved? Last week, Tuesday, I think, or Wednesday. It's been such a blur, honestly. The moving company came, we packed up, drove out, and we've just been drowning in boxes ever since. Last week, Tuesday or Wednesday. He wasn't sure which day. You forgot to mention it, I said. Not a question, just a statement. There was a pause. Not a long one, but long enough for me to hear him recalculate. I know, Dad, I'm sorry. It's been crazy. You know how it is with moves. Everything happens at once and you're just trying to keep your head above water. I meant to call sooner, but time just got away from me. Time got away from him. Like I was a dentist appointment he'd meant to schedule or a library book he'd meant to return. Did you want my new address? He asked. For cards or whatever? Sure, I said. I found a pen and paper. They were right where I always kept them, next to the phone charging station. and wrote down the address he rattled off. Colorado Springs, a street name I'd never heard before, a house I'd never seen, a life I wasn't part of. Great, Noah said. Listen, I should probably go. Still got a ton of unpacking to do, and Bree's got her sister coming over to help. But I wanted to make sure you knew where we were. Didn't want you to worry or anything. I appreciate that, I said. Okay. Well, take care, Dad. Love you. Love you too. He hung up. I stood there holding the phone, looking at the address I'd written down in my careful block letters. Gareth Weller's handwriting, neat, legible, utterly forgettable. I set the phone down on the counter. My hands were shaking now, actually trembling like I was cold, even though the kitchen was warm. I looked around the room, my kitchen, in my house, in the neighborhood where I'd lived for 32 years, where I'd raised my son, where I'd built a quiet, methodical, boring life that had apparently been so easy to leave behind that Noah couldn't even remember which day he'd done it. I walked into the living room. The house felt bigger suddenly, not in a good way, in the way that empty rooms feel big when you realize how little space you actually occupy in them. The couch where Noah used to play video games, the bookshelf where I'd kept his Little League trophies until he said they were embarrassing and made me take them down, the coffee table where we'd eaten pizza and watched action movies on Friday nights, back when he was young enough to think I was interesting. I pulled out my phone and opened the family group chat. Noah had created it 2 years ago, him, me, and Bree. It was supposed to keep us all connected, make communication easier. I scrolled through the messages. The last one was from 3 weeks ago. Bree had sent a photo of a sunset with no caption. Before that, Noah had sent a thumbs-up emoji in response to something I'd said about the weather. No mention of Colorado, no mention of moving, no mention of anything that mattered. I sat down in my recliner, the good one, the leather one I'd bought myself after the divorce as a small act of defiance against my ex-wife's constant criticism of my taste, and let myself think about what had just happened. Really think about it. Not the story Noah had told me, but the story underneath that story. He'd moved to another state, a 17-hour drive, according to the quick map search I did on my phone. He'd packed up his entire life, hired movers, drove across multiple state lines, unpacked in a new house, started settling in, made friends with neighbors. And somewhere in all of that, he'd forgotten to tell me, not forgotten in the moment, forgotten for days, maybe a week, maybe longer if I was being honest with myself. I wasn't the last person to know. I was the person who wasn't supposed to need to know. That's when I felt it. Not rage, not grief, but something colder and cleaner. Clarity. The kind of clarity that comes when you finally see the pattern you've been pretending not to notice. I opened my email, found the contact I needed. Maren Kell's attorney. I'd kept her on retainer for years, mostly for the property management business, but also for personal planning. She was efficient, unemotional, treated every problem like a checklist to be completed. Exactly the kind of person you want when things get complicated. I typed out a short message, 2 sentences. Then I opened my files, the secure folder on my computer, the one protected by 2 passwords and backed up in 3 locations, and found what I needed. The document I'd set up years ago when I'd started planning for retirement and estate management. The one Noah had never asked about. The one that included very specific clauses about family respect, contact requirements, and what happens when beneficiaries decide their benefactor is too boring to bother with. I attached the file to the email, read it over once, sent it. The little whoosh sound felt louder than it should have. I sat back in my recliner and looked at my phone. The screen showed the sent message, time-stamped at 3:47 p.m. Outside, the lawnmower had stopped. The neighborhood was quiet now, settling into that late afternoon lull before people came home from work and started making dinner. My phone vibrated. Unknown number. I watched it buzz twice, 3 times. Then it stopped. No voicemail, no text. Just someone checking if I'd answer. Maybe. testing whether I was the kind of man who chased after mysterious calls. I set the phone face down on the side table and closed my eyes. For the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. I need to explain how it got to this point. How a father and son go from little league games and homework help to a phone call where the son forgets to mention he's left the state. It didn't happen overnight. It happened slowly, so slowly, I almost didn't notice it was happening at all. I raised Noah alone from the time he was 7. His mother, my ex-wife, Claire, decided motherhood wasn't for her about 6 months after the divorce was finalized. She moved to Arizona with her new boyfriend and sent birthday cards for the first 3 years, then stopped even that. Noah asked about her sometimes when he was young, but by the time he was 12, he'd learned not to bring her up. It was easier that way. I wasn't a fun dad, I know that. I didn't take him to theme parks every weekend or buy him every toy he wanted. But I showed up, every single day. I made breakfast before school, helped with homework at the kitchen table, drove him to baseball practice, even the early Saturday ones when I would have rather slept in, fixed his bike when the chain fell off, taught him to drive in the high school parking lot on Sunday afternoons, paid for college without making him take out loans. I remember one particular night when Noah was 15. He'd failed a geometry test, the first F he'd ever gotten. He came home and threw his backpack on the floor, went straight to his room. I found him an hour later, staring at the ceiling, looking like the world had ended. "It's just one test," I said from the doorway. "It's not just one test. It means I'm stupid." "You're not stupid. You're frustrated. There's a difference." He looked at me like I didn't understand anything. "Easy for you to say. You don't have to take the SATs next year. You don't have to get into college. You already did all that." I sat down on the edge of his bed. "You're right. I don't have to do those things. But I did have to raise a kid by myself while working full-time and keeping a roof over our heads. And there were plenty of nights I thought I couldn't do it. But I did. And you will too." "How do you know?" "Because you're my son. And I didn't raise someone who gives up after one bad test." He didn't say anything for a while. Then quietly, "Will you help me study?" "Every night this week if you want." We did. Every night at the kitchen table, going through geometry problems until he understood them. He got a B on the next test, then an A on the one after that. He never thanked me directly, but he didn't need to. The way he started leaving his backpack on the kitchen counter instead of his room, like he assumed we'd work together. That was thanks enough. Practical love. That's what I called it. The kind of love that doesn't give speeches or make grand gestures, but keeps the lights on and the refrigerator full and makes sure nobody falls through the cracks. Noah appreciated it, I think, when he was younger. He was a good kid, charming, easy to like, the kind of son who made teachers smile and neighbors wave. He got decent grades, stayed out of serious trouble, had friends over on weekends. We had a routine. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. The change started in college. He came home less often. That was natural. I expected it. Kids grow up, find their own lives. But it wasn't just that he came home less. It was the way he acted when he did come home, like he was visiting a museum of his childhood. Polite interest, mild nostalgia, but always with one foot out the door. I remember Thanksgiving of his junior year. I'd made the whole meal. Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, the works. Noah came home the night before, carrying a duffel bag and talking on his phone. He barely looked at me when he walked in, just gave a distracted wave and continued his conversation. At dinner the next day, his phone kept buzzing. He'd glance at it, smile at something, type out a quick response. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah, just some friends from school. They're doing a thing tonight." "What kind of thing?" "Just a party, no big deal." "You're leaving?" He looked uncomfortable. "I mean, I came home for Thanksgiving. We had dinner. I thought I could go out for a few hours." "Of course you can," I said. I just thought we might watch a movie or something, like we used to. Dad, I'm not 12 anymore. He left around 7, came back at 3 in the morning, stumbling a little, smelling like beer and perfume. I was still up, reading in the living room. He seemed surprised to see me. You didn't have to wait up, he said. I wasn't waiting, just reading. Okay. Well, good night. He went upstairs. The next morning, he slept until noon, packed his bag, and left by 2. He was home for less than 24 hours. Then he met Bree. Bree was beautiful, the kind of beautiful that makes people pause when she walks into a room. Long, dark hair, perfect smile, a way of dressing that looked effortless but probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. She came from money, not insane money, but comfortable money. The kind where you never worry about whether you can afford something because you've never had to. She was polite to me, always, never rude, never openly dismissive. But there was something in the way she looked at my house, my furniture, my life. Like she was mentally calculating how much of it needed to be upgraded or replaced. She'd smile and compliment my cooking while subtly steering Noah toward restaurants that cost more for one meal than I spent on groceries in a week. Your dad's so sweet, she'd say to Noah, in that tone that made sweet sound like simple. The first time she visited, she asked about the house's history. I told her I'd bought it 30 years ago, right after the divorce, when this neighborhood was still affordable. She nodded and said, "It must be nice to have so many memories here." The way she emphasized memories made it clear she thought that was all the house was good for. I showed her around anyway, trying to be welcoming. Noah followed behind us, seeing his childhood home through her eyes. I watched him look at the wallpaper in the hallway, the same wallpaper that had been there since he was 10, and saw him flinch slightly, like it embarrassed him. "This is nice," Bree said when I showed her the backyard. Cozy. Cozy was another one of those words. It meant small, limited, not impressive enough for the life she wanted. Later that evening, I overheard them talking in the living room. I was in the kitchen cleaning up dinner, and their voices carried. "Your dad seems really nice," Bree said. "He is. He's a good guy. This house, though, it's very lived in. It's old. He's been here forever. Does he ever think about updating it? I mean, it must be worth something. This neighborhood has gotten better over the years." "I don't know. He doesn't really talk about that stuff." "He should. At his age, it makes sense to think about downsizing, something more manageable." "Yeah, maybe." I stood there with a dish towel in my hands, water dripping on the floor, and understood something fundamental had shifted. Bree wasn't just Noah's girlfriend. She was his compass now, pointing him toward a future that didn't include old houses or practical love or fathers who still used the same coffee maker they'd bought in 1995. After they got married, the changes accelerated. Noah started talking differently, not just about Bree, but about everything. He talked about investments and opportunities and building wealth. He'd always been ambitious, but now it was different. Now it was about status, about being seen with the right people, living in the right neighborhood, having the right kind of life. I became inconvenient, not immediately, not obviously, but I could feel it. The way visits got shorter, the way phone calls became texts and texts became sporadic, the way Noah would mention plans they'd made, trips, parties, dinners, and I'd realize I hadn't been invited, hadn't even been mentioned. "We're keeping it small," he'd say, or, "It's mostly Bree's friends," or, "You'd be bored, Dad. It's not your kind of thing." I tried to adapt. I bought new clothes, nicer shirts, better pants. I updated my phone to the newest model. I read articles about current events so I'd have things to talk about. None of it mattered. The problem wasn't what I wore or what I knew. The problem was who I was. A reminder of where Noah came from. a living connection to a past he wanted to leave behind. The worst part was the public erasure. One Sunday after church, I still went to the same church I'd taken Noah to as a kid, mostly out of habit. Mrs. Patterson asked about him. She was 80-something, kind, always remembered everyone's children by name. "How's Noah doing?" she asked. "I haven't seen him in forever." "He's good," I said. "Busy with work, you know how it is." "Oh, I'm sure. But he should visit more. You must miss him." I smiled and nodded and changed the subject. 2 weeks later, I ran into her daughter at the grocery store. She mentioned casually that she'd seen Noah at some restaurant downtown, and he'd told her I preferred being alone these days. Said I was happy with my quiet routine and didn't like having my schedule disrupted. That's when I understood. Noah wasn't just pulling away. He was managing the narrative, making his absence my choice, telling people I wanted space, I liked my solitude, I was difficult to plan around. It was brilliant, really. That way, he didn't have to feel guilty, and other people didn't have to feel uncomfortable. Everyone could believe the boring old man was happy in his boring old house, and Noah could build his new life without the weight of obligation. I started noticing other things. The way holidays changed. Thanksgiving became complicated because Bree's family had expectations. Christmas was stressful because of all the traveling. My birthday was acknowledged with a text message and sometimes a generic gift card mailed 3 days late. Last year on my 60th birthday, I waited all day for a call. It came at 9 p.m. Noah sounded rushed, distracted. "Hey, Dad, happy birthday. Sorry I'm calling so late. It's been crazy today." "That's okay. Thanks for calling." "Yeah, of course. So, how was your day?" "Quiet. Just a regular day." "That's good. Listen, we sent you a card. Should arrive in a few days." Bree picked it out. "I appreciate that." Awkward silence. Then, "Okay, well, I should go. We've got an early morning tomorrow, but happy birthday. Love you." "Love you too." The card arrived 4 days later. Generic design, printed message, both their names signed at the bottom in Bree's handwriting. Meanwhile, I'd see social media posts. Noah wasn't big on it, but Bree was, showing their holidays, the elaborate meals, the matching pajamas, the coordinated photos in front of Christmas trees or beach sunsets, a whole family life that didn't include me. I never said anything. What was I supposed to say? "You're erasing me from your life and pretending it's what I want?" That's not the kind of thing you can say without sounding pathetic, without begging for attention like some needy child instead of the man who raised him. So I stayed quiet. I showed up when invited, which was less and less. I didn't complain. I didn't make demands. I practiced the same practical love I'd always shown, just now with more distance, more silence, more empty rooms. I was sitting in the coffee shop on Main Street when Eli found me. This was the day after Noah's phone call. I'd spent the night not sleeping, just lying in bed replaying that conversation. The casual tone, the forgotten timeline, the complete lack of awareness that he'd done anything wrong. Eli Rourke lived 3 houses down from me. We weren't close friends. I've never been good at close friendships. But we had the relationship neighbors have when they've lived near each other for 20 years. We'd helped each other with yard work, borrowed tools, had occasional conversations about property values and local politics. He slid into the chair across from me without asking. "Heard about Noah." I looked up from my coffee. "How'd you hear?" "Mailman mentioned it. Said there was a forwarding notice." He studied my face. "You didn't know, did you?" "I know now." Eli was quiet for a moment. He had that quality some people have, the ability to wait, to not fill silence with pointless words. Finally he said, "I saw a moving truck at your driveway 2 weeks ago. Didn't think much of it at the time. Figured maybe Noah was helping you clear stuff out. But there were people looking at the house like they were measuring it up." My coffee had gone cold. "Measuring it up how?" the way buyers do, walking the perimeter, looking at the roof, the foundation, taking pictures. He paused. One of them had a clipboard. Something cold settled in my chest. Not surprise, recognition. You think Noah was planning something? I asked. I think he didn't move last week, Eli said. I think he moved earlier, and that truck was him trying to line up whatever comes next. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. We both knew what whatever comes next meant. An elderly father living alone in a house that could be sold, property that could be liquidated, assets that could be simplified, transferred, made easier to manage. All it would take was the right kind of pressure, the right kind of conversation. Dad, you're getting older. Wouldn't it be easier if you downsized? We could help you find a nice apartment. Wouldn't you like to have less to worry about? Eli leaned back in his chair. What are you going to do? What I always do, I said. What's appropriate and correct? He studied me for a long moment, then nodded once. If you need anything, witness to something, statement about what I saw, you know where to find me. After he left, I sat there for another hour. The coffee shop buzzed around me, people coming and going, ordering complicated drinks, typing on laptops, having conversations that sounded important and urgent and immediately forgettable. I thought about Noah's childhood, the careful way I'd built his life, the consistency, the reliability, the absolute certainty that his father would be there. And I thought about how easily he'd decided that none of it mattered, that the boring man who'd paid for everything and shown up for everything could be forgotten on a Tuesday, or Wednesday, he wasn't sure which. I finished my cold coffee and went home. The mail came at 2 o'clock, the same time it always did. I knew because I was standing at the front window when the postal truck pulled up. Not waiting for it specifically, just staring out at the street, thinking about everything and nothing. The mailbox was at the curb. I walked down the driveway, the same driveway where Eli had seen strangers measuring up my house, and opened the little metal door. Flyers, a bill, a notice from the post office about something that required my signature. I stood there reading the notice twice. It was about a change of address form. There was a package that couldn't be delivered to my address because someone had filed a forwarding instruction. The package would be held at the post office for pickup. I needed to bring identification. I hadn't filed any change of address form. The driveway felt too hot suddenly, even though it was only 70 degrees outside. The afternoon sun made the asphalt shimmer, made everything look liquid and unstable. I folded the notice carefully and walked back inside. In my office, the small bedroom I'd converted years ago, I kept everything organized. File cabinets, labeled folders, documents sorted by category and year. I found what I was looking for in the third drawer down: property deeds, insurance paperwork, and a set of documents related to a storage facility I rented across town. I hadn't been to that storage unit in 6 months. It contained family items, photo albums, old furniture, some of Noah's childhood things I couldn't bring myself to throw away. I paid the fee automatically from my bank account and mostly forgot about it. I called the facility. A young woman answered, bored and efficient. Hi, I'm calling about Unit 243, Gareth Weller. I wanted to check when it was last accessed. Keys, clicking on a keyboard. Let me see. Unit 243. Last access was 5 days ago. 5 days ago, right around the time Noah said he'd moved. Or maybe before. He couldn't remember which day. Can you tell me who accessed it? I don't have a name in the system, just that someone used the access code. Your account allows secondary access if they have the code, so we don't require additional ID. Right, I said. Thank you. I hung up. Sat very still in my desk chair. The storage unit had a 6-digit code I'd set up years ago, Noah's birthday. Of course he'd known it. Of course he'd been able to get in. But why would he need access to photo albums and old furniture? Unless he was looking for something else. Documents, maybe. Papers he thought might be stored there instead of at the house. I grabbed my keys and drove to the storage facility. It was 20 minutes across town, in an industrial area near the old railroad tracks. Rows of identical orange metal buildings, numbered units stretching in every direction. Unit 243 was in the back corner, away from the main office. I parked and walked to the unit. The lock was mine. The same combination lock I'd put there years ago, but when I opened the door and looked inside, I could see things had been moved. Not dramatically, but I knew this space. I'd organized it myself. The boxes weren't quite where they should be. I stepped inside, pulling the chain for the overhead bulb. Harsh light flooded the small space. Someone had opened the box containing Noah's school papers and trophies. The tape had been cut and reapplied, but not in the same way. Another box, the one with old tax returns and financial records from the early years, had been moved from the back wall to the middle of the unit. They'd been searching for something. I checked every box methodically. Nothing was missing, as far as I could tell. But the violation was complete. Someone had gone through my private belongings, looking for… what? Evidence of assets? Proof of accounts? Documents that could be used or copied? I stood there in that storage unit, surrounded by the physical evidence of a life I'd built and a son I'd raised, and felt something cold settle permanently in my chest. This wasn't just distance. This wasn't just neglect. This was planning. Systematic, careful planning. I locked the unit and drove home. My hands were steady on the wheel, my mind clear. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. Back at the house, I made a list. Everything Noah might want access to. Bank accounts, property deeds, insurance policies, investment portfolios, the small nest egg I'd built from the property management business. It wasn't a fortune, but it was comfortable, enough to matter. I checked my computer's login history. Someone had tried to access my accounts from a different IP address 3 days ago. The attempt had been blocked because of two-factor authentication, but the attempt was there. Colorado IP address. I didn't drive to the storage facility immediately. Instead, I got in my car and drove to the highway, not going anywhere specific, just driving. The kind of driving you do when you need to think and your house feels too small to contain your thoughts. 20 minutes out, I pulled into a rest stop, parked under a tree at the far end of the lot, away from the RVs and the families and the truckers grabbing coffee. I sat there with the engine off, windows cracked, listening to the sound of traffic on the highway. My phone rang. Noah. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Hello? Hey, Dad. Just wanted to check in, see how you're doing. His voice was wrong, too cheerful, too controlled, like he was reading from a script someone had given him, or like someone was sitting next to him, coaching him through the call. I'm fine, I said. How's the unpacking going? Oh, you know, slow but steady. We're getting there. Listen, I was thinking, it might be good for you to come visit once we're settled, see the new place. We've got a guest room, and Colorado's beautiful this time of year. That's thoughtful. Yeah, and we could talk about some things. You know, practical stuff. Making sure everything's in order, that kind of thing. Bree's been reading about estate planning and making sure family affairs are organized. Just smart stuff, nothing heavy. But it would be good to go over everything while we're together. Make sure we're all on the same page. There it was, the real reason for the call. The setup for whatever came next. We can talk about that, I said. When were you thinking? Oh, not right away. We need a few weeks to get settled first, but maybe next month? I'll send you some dates. Sounds good. There was a pause. I could almost hear him recalculating, trying to figure out if I'd caught on, if I was going to make this difficult. Actually, Dad, while I have you thought about updating your will recently? I know it's not fun to think about, but it's important to keep those things current, especially with me being in a different state now. I have a will, I said. Right, but when's the last time you reviewed it? Things change. Laws change. It might be worth having someone look at it. Bree's cousin is an estate attorney in Denver, really sharp guy. I could have him give you a call just for a consultation. I have an attorney. Oh, you do? That's great. Who? Maren Kells. I've worked with her for years. Another pause. Longer this time. I don't think you've mentioned her before. You never asked. Right. Well, that's good. That's really good. So you're all set then? Yes. Okay. Good. His voice had changed, less rehearsed, more uncertain. Well, I should go. Bree needs help with something, but I'll call you next week, okay? Okay. He hung up. I sat there holding the phone, looking out at the rest stop. A family was having a picnic at one of the concrete tables. 2 kids running around, parents laughing. Normal people living normal lives where sons didn't plot against their fathers. I thought about the timeline. The moving truck Eli saw, the storage unit accessed 5 days ago, the change of address notice, the phone call that came exactly when someone needed to establish plausible deniability. I told him we moved. He knew. He was fine with it. Noah had always been smart, charming and strategic and good at managing situations. But he'd made one mistake. He'd assumed I was passive because I was quiet. He'd confused lack of drama with lack of awareness. I thought about the document I'd emailed to Maren, the estate structure I'd set up years ago when I started the property management business and realized I needed to protect my assets. It wasn't complicated, just careful. The kind of careful planning that lawyers recommend when you have property and income and want to make sure everything goes where it should. The key element was a clause Maureen had suggested. She called it a family respect provision. It required beneficiaries to maintain reasonable contact, provide honest disclosure of major life changes, and refrain from coercive behavior. If someone violated those terms, certain consequences triggered automatically. Not as punishment, Maren had been very clear about that, but as protection. The same way a bank freezes an account if they detect fraud. I remembered the day I'd signed those documents. Maren had walked me through every page, every clause, every contingency. This seems harsh, I'd said, reading the respect provision. Do I really need this? You need it if you want to make sure your assets go where you intend them to go, she'd replied. Not where someone pressures them to go. Think of it as insurance. You hope you never need it, but if you do, you'll be glad it's there. Noah's a good kid. Today he is, but people change. Circumstances change. Spouses change people. Money changes people. This protects you and protects him. It sets clear boundaries so there's never any question about what's appropriate and what isn't. I'd signed the documents, filed them away. Never mentioned them to Noah because, why would I? He was my son. I trusted him. Or I had trusted him, back when trust was something I could afford to give freely. Noah didn't know about that clause. He'd never asked to see the estate documents. Never cared enough to wonder how things were structured. He'd just assumed everything would flow to him eventually, because that's how these things worked. And his boring father would be too proud or too lonely or too confused to do anything when the time came. I started the car and drove back home. The sun was lower now, making everything golden and soft. The kind of light photographers love because it makes ordinary things look beautiful. My phone buzzed. A text from Maren. Received your email. Need to confirm one detail. Did you give anyone power of attorney or signing authority? Call when you can. I pulled into my driveway and stared at that message for a long time. Then I called her back. Maren Kells. It's Gareth Weller. About your question. Go ahead. No, I never gave anyone signing authority. Never gave anyone power of attorney. Every document I've signed myself. Every decision I've made myself. Good. That's what I thought, but I needed to confirm. Someone scheduled a meeting at a title company for next Tuesday. Your name is on the appointment. They're preparing closing documents for a property transaction. The golden light didn't look beautiful anymore. It looked like fire. What property? Your house, Maren said. According to the preliminary paperwork they filed, you're planning to sell and transfer ownership to your son. They've already started the title search. I closed my eyes, took a breath, opened them again. What do we do? I asked. We show up to the meeting, Marin said, and we bring receipts. The bank was on 4th Street, a solid brick building that had been there since before I was born. I'd banked there for 32 years, the same account I'd opened the week I bought the house. Small-town banking, where they knew your name and remembered your father. I walked in at 9:30 Thursday morning. The lobby was quiet, just me and an elderly couple talking to someone about a CD renewal. Everything looked the same as it always had. Wood paneling, commercial-grade carpet in a forgettable pattern, framed photographs of local landmarks. I waited my turn at the customer service desk. The young man behind it, maybe 25, clean-cut, wearing a tie that looked too tight, smiled the professional smile they teach in training. How can I help you today, sir? I need to review my account security settings, I said, and I'd like to speak with someone about fraud prevention. His smile faltered. Is there a problem with your account? Not yet, but I want to make sure it stays that way. He nodded slowly, like I'd just confirmed something he'd suspected. Old man, probably confused, worried about scams. Let me see if Mrs. Varga is available. She handles our compliance and fraud prevention. Would you mind taking a seat? I sat in one of the waiting chairs. The elderly couple finished their business and left, waving goodbye to the tellers like old friends. The lobby felt very quiet after they were gone, just me and the hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional beep from the teller stations. I watched people come and go. A woman in business attire moving efficiently, deposit slip already filled out. A young father with a toddler trying to keep the kid from pulling brochures off the display rack. A maintenance worker checking the ATM. Normal banking day. Normal people with normal concerns. I wondered how many of them had ever had to protect themselves from their own children. 10 minutes later, a woman came out from the back offices. 40-something, dark hair pulled into a practical bun, wearing a blazer that meant business. She extended her hand. Mr. Weller? I'm Tamsin Varga, compliance officer. Why don't we talk in my office? Her office was small and windowless but organized. Desk, computer, filing cabinets, a single plant that somehow managed to look healthy under fluorescent lighting. She gestured to the chair across from her desk and closed the door. So, she said, settling into her chair, you're concerned about fraud prevention? I'm concerned about unauthorized access, I said. I want to make sure nobody can access my accounts or sign for anything in my name without my explicit verified permission. She studied me for a moment. This was the test. Either she'd treat me like a confused elderly person who needed hand-holding, or she'd treat me like an adult with a legitimate concern. Has something happened to make you worried about this? Not yet, I said. But I've noticed some irregularities. A meeting scheduled in my name that I didn't authorize, access to a storage facility I didn't make, a change of address form I didn't file. Small things, but they're adding up. Tamsin's expression changed. Not much, but enough. She shifted from professional courtesy to professional attention. Tell me about the meeting, I told her. Not everything. I didn't mention Noah specifically, didn't explain the family dynamics, just the facts. Someone had scheduled a closing meeting for a property transaction using my name. I hadn't authorized it. I wanted to make sure nobody could access my bank accounts or financial information to facilitate any transactions I hadn't personally approved. She made notes on a legal pad. When I finished, she looked up. Okay, here's what we can do. First, we'll add additional security measures to your accounts, verbal password verification, transaction limits, alerts for any unusual activity. Second, we'll document this conversation and flag your accounts for extra monitoring. If anyone tries to access your information or move funds, we'll require in-person verification with photo ID. What about power of attorney claims? Do you have a power of attorney on file with us? No? Then nobody can claim one, but I'll add a specific note that any power of attorney documents must be verified by me personally before they're accepted. If anyone shows up claiming authority to act on your behalf, they'll be directed to my office, and I'll contact you immediately." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Mr. Weller, I have to ask, is someone in your family pressuring you?" "Not pressuring," I said. "Not yet, but I think someone's positioning themselves to try. And you want to make sure they can't?" "Yes." She nodded. "We see this sometimes. Adult children who think they're helping, or who think they're entitled, or who just don't understand boundaries. The law is very clear. You're competent to manage your own affairs, and nobody can take that authority without proper legal process. We'll make sure your accounts reflect that." We spent the next 40 minutes going through everything: new passwords, security questions, transaction limits, alert settings. She gave me her direct phone number and email. She made copies of my ID. She had me sign several forms that basically said I was doing this of my own free will and had not been coerced. "One more thing," Tamsin said, pulling up something on her computer. "I'm going to flag your accounts for what we call enhanced due diligence. It means any unusual activity gets reviewed by a human, not just an algorithm. Wire transfers, large withdrawals, account closures, beneficiary changes, anything like that will trigger an immediate call to you for verification." "How quickly can you implement this?" "It's active now, as soon as I hit this button." She clicked her mouse. "Done. You're protected. What happens if someone tries something anyway?" "We document it. We deny the transaction. And depending on what they try, we file a suspicious activity report with the appropriate authorities. It becomes a formal record. You understand what that means? It means there's a paper trail. More than that. It means if this escalates, if someone tries to claim you're incompetent or need a guardian or anything like that, we have documentation showing you took proactive, rational steps to protect yourself. It's evidence of competence, not confusion. I hadn't thought of that angle, but it made sense. Every step I was taking wasn't just protection, it was proof. When we finished, she walked me to the lobby. "Mr. Weller, one more thing. If anyone does show up claiming they have authority over your accounts, we won't just deny them. We'll file a suspicious activity report. It becomes a formal record, just so you know." "Good," I said. "That's exactly what I want." I left the bank feeling something I hadn't felt in days. Control. Not over the situation. I couldn't control what Noah did or didn't do. But over my response. Over the boundaries that mattered. I spent the rest of the day organizing. Not frantically, not emotionally. Just methodically working through the checklist Marin and I had discussed over the phone. I pulled my property deed and made copies. I gathered insurance documents. I found the storage facility contract and made notes about the access timeline. I pulled up my phone records and marked the dates and times of Noah's calls. I checked my credit report. No unusual activity, no new accounts, nothing that shouldn't be there. But there was something else I needed to do. Something I'd been avoiding because it felt paranoid. I needed to check my mother. Celia Weller was 86, living in an assisted care facility across town. She was frail, but sharp, her mind still clear even as her body failed her. I visited every Sunday, brought her magazines and chocolates she wasn't supposed to have, but ate anyway. I drove to Meadowbrook Care Center. The lobby smelled like industrial cleaner and overcooked vegetables. Canned music played softly. Staff moved efficiently through hallways, checking on residents, distributing medications, maintaining the cheerful facade that these places require. My mother's room was on the second floor. I knocked and entered. She was sitting in her chair by the window, looking out at the parking lot. "Gareth," she said, turning. "This isn't Sunday." "I know. I wanted to check on something." She studied my face. "What's wrong?" "Has Noah visited recently, or called?" "Noah." She thought about it. "Not in months. Why?" "Did anyone contact you about me, about my health, or my ability to manage things?" Her expression sharpened. "What's going on?" I told her. "Not everything, but enough. Noah's move, the irregularities, the scheduled meeting. The sense that someone was building a case that I couldn't handle my own affairs. My mother listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "That boy," she finally said. "I knew that girl was wrong for him." "Bree? She came here once, when they first got married. Looked around like she was touring a prison. Asked me how long I'd been here, like she was calculating when I'd be gone and Noah could sell this place. This place isn't Noah's to sell. I know that. You know that. But I don't think she knows that, or cares." She reached for my hand. "What are you going to do?" "What needs to be done?" She squeezed my hand. Her grip was weak, but determined. "Good. You raised him right. But somewhere along the way, he forgot. Don't let him forget who you are." "I won't." Then I did something I should have done earlier. I called the post office about that change of address notice. The clerk who answered sounded harried. "Post office, how can I help you?" "Hi, I received a notice about a forwarding instruction on my address. I didn't file it and I want to cancel it." Typing. "What's your address?" I gave it to her. "Okay, I see it here. Filed online 6 days ago. Says temporary forwarding to Colorado Springs." 6 days ago, right when Noah said he moved, or right before. The timeline kept getting tighter. "I need to cancel that immediately," I said. "And I need documentation that it was filed without my authorization." Let me get my supervisor." I waited. 3 minutes later, a different voice came on. Older, more authoritative. "Sir, this is Rita Chen, supervisor. I understand there's an issue with a forwarding request?" "Yes. Someone filed a change of address for my home without my permission. I need it canceled and documented as unauthorized." "I can cancel it right away. For the documentation, you'll need to come into the office and file a mail fraud report. We take this seriously. It's a federal offense to file false forwarding requests." "I'll be there tomorrow morning." We open at 8. I was there at 8:15 Friday morning, filled out the fraud report, got copies of everything. The supervisor, Rita, was sympathetic in the efficient way postal workers are when they've seen everything. "Happens more than you'd think," she said. "Usually it's someone trying to intercept benefit checks or credit cards. Family members are common perpetrators. You did the right thing reporting it." I walked out with a folder full of documents, evidence, timeline. Proof that this wasn't about an old man getting confused or misunderstanding. This was about someone systematically positioning themselves to control something that wasn't theirs. My phone buzzed as I got to my car. Text message from Bree. First one she'd sent in months. "Hi Gareth, hope you're well. Just wanted to reach out. Been thinking about how much easier things would be for you now that you're getting older and Noah's settled in a new state. We'd love to help you simplify however we can. Let us know if you want to talk about options. Love, Bree." I stared at that message for a long time. The exclamation points, the word simplify, the assumption that being 61 meant I was too old to manage my own life, the fake sweetness covering the real message, let us take control before you mess something up. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the message to Marin with a single line. Timeline documentation. This came after the unauthorized forwarding request and the scheduled closing meeting. Her response came 3 minutes later. Perfect. Save everything. We're building a pattern. That afternoon, I had a doctor's appointment at the senior health clinic. Routine checkup. Nothing serious. I'd been going to Dr. Morrison for 15 years, and he was thorough but not alarmist. The waiting room was full of people my age and older. Some with walkers, some with oxygen tanks, some just looking tired in the way that age makes people tired. I checked in at the front desk, and the receptionist smiled at me with that specific kind of smile healthcare workers use on elderly patients. Loud, slow, gentle. "Mr. Weller, good to see you. If you'll just take a seat, someone will be with you shortly." I wasn't deaf. I wasn't confused. I was 61 and managed multiple rental properties and had better blood pressure than men half my age. But to her, I was just another old person who probably needed things explained multiple times and help filling out forms. I sat down and waited. Thought about how easily people dismissed competence when they saw gray hair. How convenient it was for Noah and Bree that everyone would assume dear old dad was getting forgetful, getting overwhelmed, getting to the point where he needed help managing his affairs. Dr. Morrison's appointment was fine. My blood pressure was good, cholesterol acceptable, no major concerns. He did the annual speech about staying active and eating healthy and knowing the warning signs of various conditions. Then, almost as an afterthought, "You doing okay otherwise? Any major stress or life changes?" "My son moved to Colorado," I said. "Oh? Is that hard for you?" He forgot to tell me until after he'd moved. Dr. Morrison paused in his typing, looked at me over his glasses. That must have been difficult. It was clarifying. He studied my face for a moment, then nodded. "Well, if you need to talk to someone, counselor, therapist, we have some good referrals." "I'm fine," I said. "Really, I'm handling it." He made a note in my chart. I wondered what it said. Patient reports family stress. Son relocated without notification. Patient appears calm but may need monitoring for depression. I left the clinic with a clean bill of health and the strange feeling that everyone was watching me, waiting for me to fail, waiting for the moment when I'd prove I couldn't handle things anymore and needed someone younger and smarter to step in. But I wasn't failing. I was documenting. And there's a difference between those two things that people like Noah and Bree would never understand until it was too late. The calendar notification appeared on my phone Saturday morning at 6:15 a.m. I was already awake. I'd been awake since 4, lying in bed watching the ceiling lighten as sunrise approached. Property closing meeting, Tuesday 2 p.m., Summit Title Company. Under my name, in my calendar. Synchronized from an email I'd never sent. I sat up, feeling my heart rate spike for the first time in days. Not panic, anger. Someone had accessed my email account and created this appointment, making it look like I'd scheduled it myself. I checked my email logs. The appointment had been created Thursday morning at 9:43 a.m., sent from my email address to the title company, confirming my attendance and interest in proceeding with the sale of my property. There was even a reply from someone named Rowan Pike at Summit Title, cheerfully confirming the appointment and listing the documents I should bring. Someone had my email password. I changed it immediately. Then I changed the passwords for everything else. Bank accounts, cloud storage, social media I barely used, the portal for my property management business. Everything. Then I called Marin. "They hacked your email?" Her voice was sharp, focused. "Or guessed the password. Or I wrote it down somewhere Noah found it." "Doesn't matter how. What matters is what they're trying to do with it. They're creating a paper trail that makes it look like you initiated this sale, that you want to sell, you scheduled the meeting, you're competent and willing. If anyone questions it later, they point to these emails and say, 'Look, he set this up himself.' What do? Show up Tuesday, with me, with all your documentation, with a clear statement of what you did and didn't authorize." She paused. "Gareth, this is getting sophisticated. They're not just pressuring you, they're building a legal framework to take control." "I know. You understand what that means? If we don't stop this Tuesday, they'll try something else. Different approach, different pressure point. This doesn't end with one meeting." "I know," I said again. "But it ends Tuesday with one meeting. Just not the way they planned." Sunday was strange. Church felt like theater. I sat in my usual pew and listened to a sermon about forgiveness and family and tried not to think about the irony. Mrs. Patterson asked about Noah again, and I told her he was doing well in Colorado. She patted my hand and said, "I must be so proud." After the service, I ran into Tom Harker in the parking lot. Tom was one of those men who always had an opinion and always assumed everyone wanted to hear it. He'd known Noah since Little League. "Heard your boy moved west," Tom said. "Big change." "Yes, it is." Must be hard being alone now. You ever think about downsizing? My wife's cousin is a realtor. Could probably get you a good price on this place, set you up somewhere easier to manage. I looked at him. Really looked. Wondered if he'd talked to Noah recently. Wondered if this was casual conversation or coordinated messaging. I like my house, I said. I intend to stay there. Sure, just something to think about. At your age, you want to make things simple. I was 61, not 90, but to Tom, to a lot of people, anyone past 60 was automatically in the needs help category. I drove home and spent the afternoon in my office, not doing anything productive, just sitting at my desk, looking at the files I'd organized so carefully. The life I'd built in documents and deeds and careful planning. My phone rang. Noah. Again. I let it go to voicemail, listened to the message 5 minutes later. Hey Dad, it's Noah. Just checking in. Hope you're doing okay. I know the move was sudden, and I'm sorry I didn't give you more notice. Things have just been crazy. Anyway, I was thinking, maybe we should talk about some practical stuff. You know, making sure everything's organized and in order. Bree and I want to make sure you're taken care of. Give me a call when you can, okay? Love you. The words were right. The tone was wrong. Too practiced. Too careful. Like he'd written out a script and was reading it, making sure every word landed the way it needed to. I didn't call back. Monday morning, Eli stopped by. I was in the garage organizing tools I didn't need to organize, just needing something to do with my hands. Saw that guy again? Eli said. No preamble. He wasn't the type for small talk. What guy? The one who was here with the clipboard. Kellen something, Noah's friend, the one who always shows up when something needs signing or filing or whatever. Kellen Dorsey. I'd met him a few times. Mid-30s, perpetually helpful, the kind of guy who always knew someone who could get something done. Noah called him his logistics guy. I'd always thought it was just about moving furniture or finding deals on electronics. Where'd you see him? Downtown, coming out of a notary office on 3rd Street, day before yesterday. A notary office, where you go when you need documents witnessed and certified. Thanks for letting me know, I said. You ready for tomorrow? Eli asked. Yes. He nodded. Good, because whatever happens in that meeting, it's going to be the turning point. Either they back down, or they escalate. Just want you to know I'm around if you need anything. I appreciate that. After he left, I finished in the garage and went inside. Sat in my recliner and thought about turning points. About how sometimes the quiet, boring man who everyone overlooks is the most dangerous person in the room, precisely because he's been overlooked for so long. That evening, I met Marin at her office. Small law practice, 3 attorneys, offices in a converted house on the edge of downtown. Her space was exactly what I expected. Functional, organized, no wasted effort on decoration. She had files spread across her desk when I walked in. Sit down, she said. Let's go through the plan. We spent 2 hours reviewing everything. The documents I'd brought, the timeline we'd constructed, the irregularities and unauthorized actions, the estate structure and the specific clauses that applied, what would happen in the meeting, what I should say, what she would say, what we'd do if they tried various approaches. They're going to act like you're confused, Marin said. Like this is a misunderstanding. Like you agreed to something and forgot. They need you to look incompetent or emotional or unreliable. Don't give them that. I won't. They're also going to try the emotional angle. Your son, your family. Don't you want to help them? Don't you trust them? Stay focused on facts. I will. She studied me across the desk. You're very calm about this. I've had time to process, I said. And I know what I'm doing. Do you understand what the consequences will be? For your relationship with Noah? There's no relationship left to damage, I said. He ended it when he forgot to tell me he moved. Or before. This is just making it official. Marin nodded slowly. Okay, then we're ready. I drove home through streets I'd driven for 32 years, past the elementary school where Noah had gone to kindergarten, past the baseball fields where I'd spent hundreds of Saturday mornings watching him play, past the pizza place where we'd celebrated his high school graduation, all those memories, all that history. And somehow it had led to this, to a father and son sitting on opposite sides of a conference table with lawyers and paperwork between them. I parked in my driveway and looked at my house, my home, the place I'd built a life, the place Noah had grown up in, the place someone thought they could just take because the old man was too boring, too quiet, too easy to manage. Tomorrow, they'd learn different. I went inside, locked the door, and slept better than I had in weeks. Tuesday, 2 o'clock, Summit Title Company, occupied the third floor of a modern office building downtown. Glass and steel, expensive carpeting, the kind of place that wanted you to know it handled important transactions for important people. I arrived at 1:45 with Marin. We took the elevator in silence. Walked down the hallway past framed photos of local buildings and satisfied clients, found the right office number. Marin paused before opening the door. Remember, facts only. Stay calm. Let me handle the legal arguments. I nodded. We walked in. The conference room was exactly what I expected. Long table, leather chairs, windows overlooking downtown. Rowan Pike stood at the head of the table, late 30s, expensive suit, the kind of handshake that felt like a performance. He smiled when we entered. Mr. Weller, good to see you. And you must be his attorney? Marin Kells, yes. Wonderful. We're just waiting for... The door opened behind us. Ah, here they are now. Noah walked in first. He looked good, well-rested, well-dressed, successful. The kind of son anyone would be proud of. His eyes met mine for a moment, and I saw him recalculate. I wasn't supposed to bring a lawyer. I was supposed to come alone, confused, ready to be guided through whatever they'd planned. Bree came in behind him. She smiled at Rowan, ignored Marin, gave me a sympathetic look. Gareth, hi. I'm so glad you made it. Like I was an elderly relative who'd managed to find his way across town without getting lost. Kellen Dorsey was last through the door. He nodded at me, set a briefcase on the table, and took a seat next to Noah like this was completely normal. Rowan gestured to the chairs. Why don't we all sit down? This should be straightforward. Mr. Weller, we have the documents ready for your signature regarding the sale of your property to your son. We've done most of the work already. Title search is clean. We've got the deed transfer prepared. Just need to verify a few details and collect signatures. Marin sat down slowly. I sat next to her. Noah and Bree took chairs on the opposite side. Kellen opened his briefcase. Before we begin, Marin said, I need to clarify something. Mr. Weller did not initiate this transaction. He did not authorize this meeting. He did not agree to sell his property. Rowan's smile flickered. I'm sorry. There must be some confusion. We have emails from Mr. Weller's account scheduling this meeting and confirming his intent to proceed. Those emails were unauthorized, Marin said. Someone accessed his email account without permission and created this meeting under false pretenses. Noah leaned forward. His expression was concerned, gentle, the face of a worried son. Dad, I don't understand. We talked about this. You said you were interested in simplifying your life, making things easier now that I'm in Colorado. We never talked about this, I said. My voice came out steady, calm. We talked about you moving. You forgot to tell me until after it happened. We never discussed selling my house. I think there's been a misunderstanding, Bree said. Her tone was soothing, patient. Gareth, we know this has been a stressful time. Big changes, Noah moving, being alone in that big house. It's natural to feel confused about what was discussed. I'm not confused, I said. Rowan cleared his throat. Perhaps we should take a step back. Mr. Weller, do you want to sell your property? No. Are you interested in transferring ownership to your son? No. Then I'm not sure why we're all here. That's an excellent question, Marin said. She pulled a folder from her briefcase. Let me explain why we're here. Someone scheduled this meeting without Mr. Weller's knowledge or consent. Someone accessed his email account and created a false paper trail. Someone filed a change of address form intercepting his mail. Someone accessed a storage facility he owns without permission. This meeting isn't about a property sale. It's about attempted unauthorized control. Kellen spoke for the first time. That's a serious accusation. Do you have any proof? Marin smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. Yes, we do. She pulled out the first document. Email access logs showing the property sale appointment was created from an IP address that doesn't match any device Mr. Weller owns. Post office fraud report documenting an unauthorized forwarding request filed 6 days ago, the same time Noah moved. Storage facility records showing unit access Mr. Weller didn't make. Bank compliance documentation showing Mr. Weller had to add additional security measures to prevent unauthorized access attempts. She laid them out one by one, creating a timeline across the conference table. What we have here is a pattern. A systematic attempt to position Mr. Weller as someone who needs help managing his affairs, while simultaneously creating situations that would make that management easier for others to take over. Noah's face had gone pale. Bree's expression had shifted from sympathetic to something harder. This is ridiculous, Bree said. You're making it sound like we're trying to steal from him. We're his family. We're trying to help. Help with what? Marin asked. He's 61 years old, in excellent health, successfully managing multiple properties. What exactly does he need help with? He's alone, Noah said. His voice had an edge now. He's getting older. Things happen. We're just trying to make sure he's taken care of before something goes wrong. By taking control of his property without his consent? That's not what this is. Then what is it? I asked. My turn to speak now. You move to Colorado and forget to tell me. You access my storage unit without asking. You file a change of address to intercept my mail. Someone schedules a meeting to sell my house, and you show up with paperwork ready. What am I supposed to think this is? Noah stared at me. For a moment, I saw genuine emotion on his face. Not guilt. Frustration. The frustration of someone whose careful plan had just collapsed. Dad, I'm trying to protect you. That house is too big. The maintenance is too much. You need something simpler. Somewhere safer. We can help you find a nice apartment, closer to people with less to worry about. I don't want an apartment, I want my house. You're being stubborn. I'm being clear. Rowan Pike had been watching this exchange with increasing discomfort. Gentlemen, perhaps this is a family matter that should be discussed privately. We can reschedule when everyone's had time to. We won't be rescheduling, Marin said, but there's one more thing Mr. Weller wants to share. She looked at me. I nodded. This was it. The moment the whole structure revealed itself. I pulled out the document I'd emailed her that first day, the one Noah had never asked about, the estate plan with its very specific provisions. Noah, do you know what this is? I asked. He glanced at it. Estate planning. You showed me that years ago. Did you read it? The basics. Why does this matter? Because you should have read the details, I said. Specifically the section about beneficiary requirements. Marin took over. Mr. Weller's estate includes several properties, investment accounts, and other assets. The structure includes specific requirements for beneficiaries. They must maintain honest communication. They must disclose major life changes. They must not attempt coercive behavior or unauthorized access. If a beneficiary violates these terms, they're automatically removed from any inheritance considerations. The structure protects Mr. Weller from exactly the kind of behavior we're seeing today. Noah's face went white, genuinely white. What are you saying? I'm saying you're no longer a beneficiary, I said. Every action you've taken in the last 2 weeks triggered the protection clauses. The move without notification, the storage access, the mail interception, this meeting, all of it documented, all of it in violation of the terms you agreed to when I set this up. I never agreed to anything. I didn't know about those terms. Ignorance isn't a defense, Marin said. These provisions have been in place for 6 years. You were notified they existed when Mr. Weller first established the structure. You chose not to review the details. Bree found her voice. This is insane. You're cutting your son out of your inheritance because he moved to Colorado? I'm protecting my assets from someone who's demonstrated they'll attempt unauthorized control, I said. The move was just the first piece. The rest was you trying to position me as incompetent so you could take over management of my property. Kellen started to speak. Marin cut him off. We're not done. The bank has documented suspicious activity attempts. The post office has a fraud report on file. We have witness statements about strangers examining Mr. Weller's property without his permission. If anyone in this room attempts to pressure Mr. Weller further or makes any additional unauthorized access attempts, we'll be filing formal reports with multiple agencies. Elder fraud, identity theft, attempted coercion, these are federal charges. The room went silent. Rowan Pike stood up. I think this meeting is over. Mr. Weller, I apologize for any confusion. We'll be closing this file immediately. He started gathering papers. The sound of shuffling documents was very loud in the quiet room. Noah finally found his voice. Dad, you can't do this. I can, and I have. We're family. You stopped treating me like family the day you decided I was too boring to bother telling you'd moved. That's not fair. Fair? The word came out harder than I intended. You forgot to tell me you moved to another state. You accessed my property without permission. You tried to set up a sale of my house without my knowledge. You brought a friend to a meeting where you were planning to take control of my assets. What part of any of that is fair? Bree stood up. This is emotional manipulation. You're an old man who's upset his son is living his own life, and you're punishing him for it. I'm protecting myself, I said. There's a difference. Marin added, and for the record, every action we've taken is documented and legally sound. Mr. Weller is competent, his decision-making is clear, and his boundaries are reasonable. If you want to challenge this, you're welcome to try. We have 6 years of documentation showing proper estate planning and recent documentation showing exactly why these protections were necessary. Noah sat very still. I watched him process what had just happened. Not just that he'd lost the inheritance, that he'd lost control, that his boring, quiet father had outmaneuvered him completely. I can't believe you'd do this, he said quietly. I can't believe you thought I wouldn't, I replied. Rowan Pike moved toward the door. I think everyone should take some time to cool down. This has clearly been a difficult misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding, I said. It was an attempt that failed. I stood up, gathered my documents. Marin did the same. Noah called after me as I reached the door. Dad, wait. We can talk about this. We can fix this. I stopped, turned around, looked at my son. There's nothing to fix, I said. You made your choices. You treated me like an obstacle to manage instead of a person to respect. The consequences of those choices are not my responsibility. So that's it? You're just done? No. You were done when you forgot to tell me you'd moved. I'm just making it official. I walked out. Marin followed. The elevator ride down was silent. We walked through the lobby, past the expensive art and the polished floors, and out into the afternoon sunlight. My phone started ringing before we reached the parking lot. Noah's name on the screen. I turned it face down and kept walking.